Sure. Okay.
You're all set, Jeffrey.
Okay. Koitem Paul Buchnim Aborim. Wir sind jetzt sehr zufrieden, auch zu verbeten zu ein interessanter Abend mit Chicago Yivo. Ihr mögt uns gefunden auf der Website chicagoyivo.org. Can you mute everybody, Jake?
I believe everybody except for the three of us are muted.
Okay. Titel Schechter Viswanat has spent most of her years devoted to the perpetuation of the Yiddish language in both her personal and professional life. She is currently on the board of the chair of the League for Yiddish, which holds the copyright to the Comprehensive English-Yiddish Dictionary, as well as other pedagogical textbooks. Und jetzt da ein Wort von mir. Ich kenne ja schon ein Sachjahr. Ich rede, ob ihr lasst nicht, will reden ein bisschen Jiddisch und danach rüber auf Englisch. Ich habe sehr gute Titelns Taten, Mordgeschichte und ihr könnt sehen, das Wörterbuch, was sie zusammengestellt und es steht geschrieben, based on the lexical research of Mordgeschichte. Ihr Taten. Er ist gewählt, so nicht kein, wir können sagen, als er ist gewählt, a Goyen of Jiddisch und a Goyen of jiddische Kultur. Und ich habe ihn gut gekannt, schon lange Jahre, und ich sehe, als ihr mögt sehen, ein Bild von ihm in Bronx. Gittel is the language editor of Offenschwell on the Threshold, which is the magazine of the League for Yiddish. And she's edited numerous Yiddish books and magazines over the years. Sie ist eine Poetesse, a Yiddish poet, und sie hat ausgegeben verschiedene jiddische Publikations und euch in a Buch von ihrer Poesie, a book of her poetry, Plutzendicke Regen, Sudden Rain. She's also a singer and a charter participant in the Yiddish Philharmonic Chorus. You can find that by just typing in Yiddish Philharmonic Chorus, and you'll find it on YouTube, and you can hear them sing in one page, I guess, of YouTube. You'll hear them sing Star Spangled Banner in Yiddish, and on another page, you'll hear them sing a bunch of French songs. She'll talk about the development of the new dictionary, the most recent one since 1968, when Uriel Weinreich put together the first modern one. So, in ihr Heim redt man Jiddisch. Die Kinder reden Jiddisch und dacht sich als de eniglich reden euch Yiddish. Her three children were raised speaking Yiddish, and their children are now speaking Yiddish. Es ist ein großes Vergnügen und ein Covid von mir, vorzustellen, Gittel Schechter Wissen.
Jeffrey, before Gittel starts, people want to see your poem.
Whose poem?
Yours.
Oh. Then I have to click something called video?
No, well,
no. Move your screen down.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. I apologize for interrupting.
Now that you interrupted, let me remind people that we are a volunteer organization, and please become a member, and please give whatever donations you can in the greatest amount you can. And now, Gittel Viswanat.
Shalom Aleichem. Ze zat COVID doet ze aan in te redden faraza shenem oilem from Chicago Yiva. It's an honor to have this opportunity to speak with you today about a topic not that frequently discussed, the making of a new English-Yiddish dictionary. Today's audience probably includes both people who are fluent in Yiddish and others who are not. Some of you may have gone to a Yiddish shule, others not. And some of you may not know any Yiddish at all. I just want to reassure you that I'm speaking in English this evening. And I will translate any Yiddish word that I use along the way, and I'm quite sure that everyone will understand what I'm saying. So, you want to know how to say cell phone in Yiddish, or binge watch, or distracted driving. Maybe you're one of those people like me. You know, I'm hearing an echo. I'm not sure what the problem is. Are you hearing an echo?
Yeah.
No,
No, okay. Okay. So maybe you're one of those people like me who not only loves Yiddish songs.
Gittel, can you back up a little from your mic? Maybe that's the issue. Maybe you're giving your own feedback.
My mic would be up here, correct?
Yeah, just
Okay.
Okay, good. Let's see what happens.
So maybe you love Yiddish songs, Yiddish idioms, the occasional Yiddish film, but maybe you somehow also want to incorporate the language into your daily life. Make it a truly meaningful part of your being. Or maybe you're trying to remember all those words that your Baba Zayda or your Tata Mama used to use, but you just can't retrieve them after all those years. There are so many words that we just don't know. And what about all the new concepts that have entered our society and our consciousness since we Yidden were forced to leave the Alte Heim, the old country, the organic wellspring of Mameluschen? So what do? Well, the natural thing in any language would be to look them up in a dictionary. Well, until 2016, there was no such thing as a comprehensive dictionary to look up thousands, tens of thousands of modern words in Yiddish. As a matter of fact, when I was a young child in the 1960s, growing up speaking Yiddish, there was no such animal as a modern English-Yiddish dictionary at the time. So what did we do? Well, we managed. Of course, it did help that we had a walking dictionary living in our midst. So now a little background history, a bissele Geschichte. I grew up in the Bronx in a Yiddishist home, one of 4 children of Mordche and Chana Schechter. My father, originally from Czernowitz, Romania, and earned his PhD in linguistics in Vienna after the war and came to the US in 1951. In the more than 4 years that he lived in a DP camp from 1947 to 1951, he was already working as a Sammler, a collector for the YIVO. More about that in a bit. He was also a verbrennte Yiddishist, devoted to the cause of perpetuating the Yiddish language. My mother, Charna, who was born and grew up speaking Yiddish in the Bronx, was a pianist who accompanied Yiddish singers on the stage. They married in 1956 with the goal of raising a Yiddish-speaking family within a like-minded community. When I was still a baby, that's me on the left, my parents were looking to settle on a chicken farm in South Jersey, where there was an entire community of Yiddish-speaking chicken farmers. Most had not been chicken farmers in Europe, but this was their new life in America. In the end, that didn't pan out because, well, he had several teaching jobs in New York City and didn't own a car and didn't know how to drive. So that was the end of that dream. So we settled in the Bronx, and my siblings and I attended public school. But every day after school, we attended the Sholem Aleichem Volksschule 21, right across the street on Bainbridge Avenue, or Die Bainbridgivke, as my parents called our small Yiddishist community, in the style of Eastern European towns like Anatevka in Fiddler on the Roof. In order to make Yiddish be fun and games for us, my father created a children's club called Enge Benge, from the Yiddish counting rhyme, Enge Benge Stuppestenga Arze Barze Golle Schwarze Egel Begel Fegel Chik. We went on outings to various parks, and published a children's magazine called, of course, Enga Benga. And of course, we spoke only Yiddish. My father attended every single one of these events and made sure we spoke only Yiddish. Every summer, we attended, you might see in this picture, this is a small group of Enga Benga. So on the left, I'm sure you've heard of David Fishman. Next to him is Rachel Schechter. She's my sister. Avi Hoffman, third from the left. Itzik Gottesman. It was a nice crowd. Every summer, we attended Camp Hemshech, a Bundist summer camp founded by Holocaust survivors that had a strong focus on Yiddish and Jewish continuity, which is what the word Hemshech means. Camp Hemshech was a treasure trove of young Yiddish speakers. At the beginning, the campers were mostly children of survivors. Many of them, our father successfully recruited in 1964 into the new organization that he co-founded with David Ruskis and Gabi Trunk, Jugendruf Youth for Yiddish. My siblings and I, after we graduated from Enga Benga, all became active in Jugendruf, becoming at various points the point people, the vanguard of young, mostly American-born Jews who wanted to continue speaking the language of their parents and grandparents. Here we are selling Yiddish t-shirts in Central Park at a Jewish festival. We participated in demonstrations, picketing the New York Yiddish newspapers in 1970, demanding that they modernize their outdated Germanic Yiddish spelling. That's me. I don't know if you can see. This is me here, and right in front of me is Bella Schechter Gottesman, the well-known poet and artist. She was my aunt. She's my father's sister. And yes, we ran into many people over the years who asked us why we're doing this. Why don't we just let the language die? Why don't we just speak Hebrew? It was really troubling to consider that fellow Jews were willing to allow a huge chunk of our culture to just fade away. If I had a penny for everyone who told me that their parents spoke Yiddish when they didn't want them to understand. The signs in our house growing up were all in or about Yiddish. This one, Mishpucha Schechter, kommt zu uns rein. This is the Schechter family, come on in. This now hangs on my brother Benjamin's front door in Manhattan. Akise habla Yiddish, not a Yiddish sign, but it's about Yiddish. It's Spanish for here we speak Yiddish, and this sign now hangs on our foyer door in Teaneck, New Jersey. As I mentioned earlier, in the first 10 years of my life, there was no modern English Yiddish dictionary. If we kids wanted to look up an English word to see how to say it in Yiddish, the best we could do was look it up in Alexander Harkavi's English-Yiddish Wörterbuch of 1891. That is a dictionary that was 70 years old. But that dictionary really wasn't useful for us. For example, let's say we wanted to look up the word brake, a brake as in a car, right? We could find that word in Harkavi of 1891, but this was the translation. I'll say it in Yiddish first, and then I'll say it in English. A ziegepravete Gezeig in Eisenbahnwaggonen zu machen langsamer dem Gang von die Räder. A mechanism used in locomotive cars to slow down the speed of the wheels. The translated word was 13 words long. It was really a definition, not a translation. But not only that, the definition of brake in that dictionary had nothing to do with cars, but rather with railway trains. Why is that? Anybody here know when the first car hit the market in America? In 1893. That's right, 2 years after that dictionary was published. I think we can all agree that that was a dictionary for the 19th century. In 1915, another English Yiddish dictionary was published by Paul Abelson. But many of the quote-unquote Yiddish glosses were actually German words that were lifted wholesale from German dictionaries and plopped into an English-Yiddish dictionary. That work was considered far from high quality. Although other Yiddish dictionaries were published in the 20th century, for example, Harkavi's Yiddish-English-Hebrew Dictionary in 1928, it was reissued in 1988, still, they were intended for Yiddish speakers. They were not English Yiddish. Fast forward many decades to the great miracle of 1968. The publication of Uriel Weinreich's modern English-Yiddish, Yiddish-English dictionary. And we, still children at the time, were overjoyed. Wow, a dictionary with new crisp pages that wasn't yellowed and crumbling. And taka there, we found the word for break with a modern one-word definition, der Tormaz, as well as many other words which were never found in Harkavi of 1891. The Weinreich dictionary thereafter served the Yiddish student and Yiddish speaker for many decades. I'm sure many of you used it in Yiddish class or have a copy at home. But what happens when the world around you changes exponentially, especially the world of science and technology, but also many other fields and sectors of society? Practically the only technological word in Weinreich's dictionary was what was the big thing in those days, and that word was computer. A little known fact, for those who are familiar with Weinreich's dictionary, is that it was intended as a beginning, an initial attempt, the first edition, which would be followed by improved and expanded editions. But unfortunately, this was not to be. Weinreich died very young in 1967 at the age of 40 and didn't even live to see the publication of his work in 1968. From that point onward, no one undertook to revise or expand the corpus of the dictionary, although subsequent printings continued for decades, and I believe it's still being reprinted. This is the dictionary that was used in pretty much all university-level Yiddish classes in the 20th century, and perhaps today as well. At 20,000 entries, which seemed like a lot at the time, this pioneering work became increasingly more limited as time went on. Yet many existing words and expressions in Yiddish didn't appear there because 20,000 words just isn't enough. Just a few examples. If you look up flea market in Weinreich, you won't find it. You know how to say flea market in Yiddish? Well, it's either a Fleimark, which means flea market, or a Wanzenmark, meaning a market of bedbugs. How do we say hit pay dirt in Yiddish? Which we don't find in Weinreich. Either gefinnen gold, finding gold, or aranfallen in a schmaltzgrieb, falling into a pit of schmaltz, which I'm not sure needs any translation. Rendered chicken fat, for those of you who don't know. Some of the words that were found in Weinreich had seemingly incomplete glosses. For example, the perfectly day-to-day word urinate is listed with two synonyms. The scientific / formal / international urinieren, and the more learned mashtemzan. The one word that was missing is the one word that pretty much everyone knows and uses, and that word is pischen. In some areas of Eastern Europe, this was considered a vulgar term. In others, it was not. But the vast majority of our forebears used it naturally in daily life and continue to use it today. This is just one example. Thousands of other words that existed in 1968 just could not make it into the dictionary. Terms of anatomy and physiology, sex and intimacy, chemistry, art, music, physics, sports, cuisine, medicine, many thousands of nouns and verbs and adjectives and adverbs that had long existed because You think they didn't speak about those things in Eastern Europe or do them? But a dictionary of 20,000 had its limits. Dr. Schechter was a philologist, a linguist who had a special interest in compiling specific terminologies. After working as a Sammler in the DP camp, he continued to work as a field researcher in New York for YIVO's Language and Culture Atlas of Ashkenazic Jewry, the Yiddische Sprach- und Kulturatlas. He would travel all over New York City on the subway, die Unterbahn, schlepping a humongous tape recorder, what he called a magnetophone, and his task was to interview hundreds of Jews who had lived in Eastern Europe and were now transplanted to the Golden Medina, the Golden Land. Interview them about their trade or profession, record their Yiddish dialects, including the subtle differences within even one dialect spoken. For example, just in the very next town over, they say the word differently. He interviewed tailors, shoemakers, farmers, teachers, professional athletes. Yes, we had them in Eastern Europe. Scientists, former soldiers in the Russian army, and others, all of whom used Yiddish when doing their work or their profession. Aside from that, he read every manner of Yiddish newspaper and magazine being published in the world at the time. You can't even imagine what our childhood dining room table looked like. Jeffrey Mallow might be able to imagine it because he was in our house when I was very young. He voraciously read literature, memoirs, prose, poetry, essays, and that's how he collected all those words, one, by transcribing them onto 3x5 index cards. And here is how he did the work. He would read an article. Can you see that? It's very small. This is probably an article in the Vorwärts or Let's Denius. I don't really know. And he finds a word that's interesting. So in this case, it was air-to-ground missile. So he created an index card with that word, and the Yiddish word was a Rupraket. I don't know where the word came from, but that became air-to-ground missile in Yiddish. And Lamed Mem Lamed, which you see down at the bottom, means that this word was published in his book, Leitish Mamelushim, which was a collection of many of his words and explanations. He estimated that over the years, he had amassed around 1 million words. He was the eternal optimist when it came to Yiddish, and always strove someday to publish a dictionary that would include these words and expressions. Let Yiddish speakers and students know how to say such and such a word that had never appeared in an English-Yiddish dictionary. But the years flew by, as they do, with far too many ambitious projects and too little time. Finally, at the turn of the new millennium, he began to compile this work together with several of his colleagues. Initially, he planned to publish all his terminologies as one single collection, and at the same time include the many, many thousands of words that hadn't made the cut for Weinreich's dictionary in 1968. Unfortunately, after 2 years of work on this new dictionary, and having completed a draft version of the letter A, he took ill and was unable to continue, and the work ground to a halt. Since I was one of his colleagues on this monumental work, as was also Herschel or Paul Glasser, who's my co-editor-in-chief, we undertook with enthusiasm, tempered with a considerable amount of doubt, and without truly understanding how raw the material still was and what the scope of this effort would be. We carried on with the project. Had we known then that it would drag on for 16 more years, the project might have just stopped at that point. When you think about it, this could very well be the last English-Yiddish dictionary that will have included the participation of native Yiddish speakers from Eastern Europe, or the older generation of native Yiddish, non-Hasidic Yiddish speakers in general. Editing and publishing this hidden treasure was an urgent, pressing matter, and the clock was ticking. So we went ahead. But even with this huge collection, So many words and expressions were missing. How could we call a dictionary comprehensive without those words? For example, think of all the word combinations with the verb turn. Turn around, turn away, turn back, turn down, turn into, turn right, turn loose, turn out, turn one's stomach, turn back the clock, turn heads, turn out for the better, turn up one's nose, and many more. A native Yiddish speaker from Eastern Europe would have known how to say all these words or expressions, but here in America, in the 21st century, not so push it. I had the great mazel to collaborate with several dozen experts in their respective fields, including Herschel Glaser, as well as the Yiddish expert and professor Chava Lapin. She was an associate editor. We consulted with Yiddish speakers who were also specialists in their chosen fields. We researched and investigated and found as many of the Yiddish equivalents as possible, using various bilingual dictionaries to unearth these words. For example, we used Shapiro's Russian Yiddish Dictionary, and I don't know if I can make this larger, or if any of you speak Russian, this here is the word головой, meaning head. And it continues on to list a number of Russian expressions with the word head with their Yiddish equivalents. Hat a voil keppel, der Kopf arbeit bei ihm wie sie darf zu sein, Kopfmensch, Hitzkopf, Deyesuger, many, many, many words for the word that use the word head. And we were able to really pull many, many expressions from this dictionary, which was published during the Soviet Union. And it's an amazing treasure. Then we had Stuchkov's Oitzer von der Jiddischer Sprach. An Oitzer means a treasure, but an Oitzer also means a thesaurus, a Werter Oitzer. This is an unbelievably comprehensive Yiddish thesaurus consisting of 933 pages of synonyms that was completed without the benefit of a computer. And it's just incredible. You look up any topic you want and you can find hundreds of verbs, nouns, whatever you want. I mean, not modern words, obviously, because this was published in 1950, but words and expressions until then. And here we have Stuchkov online. Now, we have someone called Simon Neuberg, Shimon Neuberg. He lives in Germany. He's a linguist. And he digitized the Oitzer. And if you type in a Yiddish word, it has to be in YIVO transliteration. So you have to know the rules of standardized orthography according to YIVO. And let's say you want to look up the word fußball. So you look up fußball and it shows up in paragraph 514 together with a whole bunch of other sports in Yiddish. It's not a dictionary, it's a thesaurus. And that was incredibly helpful to us in looking up words or expressions. Then we used a Polish-English dictionary, an English-Hebrew dictionary, an English-German dictionary, and we also used other Yiddish dictionaries, such as the Great Dictionary of the Yiddish Language, der große Wörterbuch von der Jiddischer Sprach, which was edited by Judel Mark. It took nearly 20 years to publish 4 volumes, and all the volumes consisted of the letter Aleph. We're blessed with many, many words in Aleph for a number of reasons, words that begin with Aleph. But unfortunately, they never made it to the letter Bays until 2024, which is where we are now. Work is now in progress on the letter, actually the letters Bays, Gimel, Daled, and Hey. It won't be published the way this was published. It'll be probably in an online format, but we can hope that it will be available soon. So you can't look up any words starting with Vav, but we'll have many more volumes to help us. Actually, you may have heard there is an opera that was written called The Great Dictionary of the Yiddish Language. It's a chamber opera written by the very talented Alex Weiser and Ben Kaplan of New York YIVO, and it's been performed several times. Unfortunately, I couldn't make them, but I have written to Alex Weiser and I've asked him please to let me know whenever there's a performance. I need to see this. It's essentially the story of how Yudel Mark was haunted by the ghosts of the letter Aleph. I mean, it just, I don't think it's a comedy, but it's sort of tragicomic. And then in 2013, there was another dictionary called the Comprehensive Yiddish-English Dictionary, published in 2013 by Sholem Beinfeld and Chaim Bochner. And it was originally actually a dictionary by Yitzchok Naborsky. It was originally a Yiddish-French dictionary, and Beinfeld and Bochner translated the French part into English. And it became available online, so that was a tremendous resource for us. And here's just one page from the Yiddish-English Dictionary, various expressions with the word Nacht. And of course, this is a Yiddish-English, so the words are listed by Nun, Nacht, and then on the left side, the different expressions for night. And yes, we consulted generic online dictionaries as well, as far as they could be useful, including Wiktionary and Reverso, which not only gave us translations from German and Russian, but they also give us the context of the word in a printed text, which is very helpful in trying to understand the specifics, the accuracy of the word. Many times, we just had to omit words and expressions that we found on my father's index cards, but we just couldn't verify them. Perhaps they were transcribed or spelled incorrectly on the cards. In any case, such is the work of an editor. You sometimes have to just cut. So contrary to what the original plan had been for this dictionary, we went in a different direction. Rather than a sequel or a supplement to the Weinreich dictionary, we decided to go, so to speak, the whole hog, or as we say in Yiddish, as me es chaze soll schon rinnen über der Bord. If you're already eating pork, let it drip all over your beard. We decided to make this a comprehensive dictionary. And of course, we understand that there are many words that don't appear in our dictionary either. But comprehensive has a number of different meanings. We added to Dr. Schechter's collection all manner of ordinary, commonly used words that appear in any dictionary, words such as book and table and shoe and so forth. Now a word about neologisms or new coinages. Contrary to what some people may think, the vast majority of the words in our dictionary are not new and were not necessarily coined or made up by either Mordechai Schechter or his colleagues. The young linguist Lazer Burko has estimated that about 7% would be considered neologisms, although he later reconsidered that even that estimate was too high. Yiddish has tended to be a conservative language, and the controversy of neologisms in Yiddish has a long history, partly because some Yiddish linguists decided decades ago not to highlight in a dictionary that a given word was a new coinage. It was difficult, therefore, to track them or even know what was or wasn't a neologism. Dr. Schechter was also of the school of thought that neologisms should not be marked with any special symbol in a dictionary. They are new words for new concepts, and they're now part of the Yiddish language. By the way, the Weinreich dictionary also included several hundred new coinages, and there were people who objected to it at the time, saying, quote, "Man Baba hat das Wort nicht genitzt." My grandmother never used such a word. But your grandmother lived probably in a different century and may not have been speaking about many of the words, the topics that we speak about today, and may not have needed those words. New words are constantly being coined in all languages. Witness the word break in 1891. In those languages that are affiliated with a state, institutes exist to address this need. France has its Académie Française. Israel has its Ha'Akademia Lalashon Ha'ivrit. Yiddish, of course, has never had an official state and has had to make do with various language committees throughout the years, both in Eastern Europe and here in America. Yivo once had the linguists' circle. Later, my father was active in the terminology working group, Terminologischer Arbeitskreis. This involved sending out questionnaires to Yiddish linguists, native Yiddish speakers, writers, people with a chush, a sense, a feel for the language, and asking for their opinion on several possible Yiddish translations of a new word or concept. Today, we have a small informal group of Yiddish scholars and experts around the world who do this work, and it is accomplished mostly by email. So in the context of our dictionary, how did we strive to coin new words? First and foremost, we strove not to include English words as Abelson did in 1915 with his German glosses, his Yiddish glosses from German. We did not want to import from other languages if possible, although in certain cases, especially regarding technology, we had little choice and went the way of other languages. Computer, and that was in Weinreich's dictionary. In Yiddish, computer is not computer, it is computer. Note the different pronunciation. The word online in Yiddish is online. Note the different stress. We would look at how a given word is used in other languages, mainly German, Russian, Polish, and Russian Kodesh, essentially the source languages for much of the Yiddish lexicon, the vocabulary, the grammar, and idiomatic usage. On the basis of what we found in those languages, we were mostly able to either find or come up with appropriate equivalents. What was most important was to come up with a word or a phrase that felt Yiddish through and through, mit a Yiddischen Tam. It should adhere to Yiddish grammatical rules, have a natural Yiddish construction or idiomatic element, a natural rhythm, perhaps have a Yiddish prefix or suffix. This was most critical in coining slang and other contemporary words, because words don't catch on if they don't have that special something. And so here, this is a little bit out of order, I'm sorry. Here we go. Here are some recent neologisms. These are 10 words and expressions that appear in this dictionary, in a dictionary, English-Yiddish dictionary, for the first time. Email. This word made its way in the 1990s into the English, into one of those terminology questionnaires that I mentioned. To this day, we don't know which of the respondents actually coined the winning word, but the word used today for email as a concept, the email system, is Blitzpost, and an email letter is a Blitzbrief. Yes, they could have decided to use elektronische Post, electronic mail, as some had suggested at the time, but it was a bit too parv. It was lacking something. Now, Blitzpost is different. Most of you might know the word blitz from another context, the Blitzkrieg. Well, both in German and in Yiddish, blitz means lightning. So email is mail that travels as quickly as lightning. It was simple, Yiddishlich, it took off, and there we have it. Cell phone. When cell phones first came out, people were calling them by all sorts of different names in Yiddish. Cellularer Telefon, Mobil Telefon, Zelke, Mobilke, and maybe a few others. The last two of these options appear in our dictionary. The one my family uses is Zelke. The other one, Mobilke, is used by other members of my extended family. It's a mixed marriage, you know, a mixed family. But note the suffix ke in both words, Zelke and Mobilke. The suffix ke can indicate either a diminutive or something concrete. There was one individual who said that he could not possibly use the word Zelke because in Polish, the word Zelke, with an entirely different linguistic origin, meant a prostitute. So he had a choice to use Mobilke. We could not be concerned with homophones between two different languages. So we have Zelke and Mobilke. And if any of you use any of the others, that's fine as well. Designated driver. This was one of the expressions on my father's index cards. It wasn't clear if he coined it or heard it elsewhere. And the expression was der nichterer Chauffeur, meaning the sober driver. It's quite to the point, don't you think? It's actually clearer and less ambiguous in Yiddish than in English. The next one is food coma. So what's a food coma? We could say an Essen coma, because those are the two words for food coma. But when you go into a food coma, it's probably because you were stuffing your face. So our group came up with the word a fresscoma, which is what we call a food coma. Hand sanitizer. Thank you, pandemic. We needed a word for hand sanitizer. So we could have said hand sanitizieren. It's possible. But we went with the word hand antiseptic. Antiseptic is a Yiddish word because it is clearer about what it's doing. It's not just cleaning your hands. It is removing bacteria from it. So hand antiseptic, hopefully we don't have to use it much longer. Flash drive. The aforementioned Shimon Neuberg from Germany was visiting us one day, and he was in my house, and we didn't have a word yet for flash drive because it was a relatively new concept. And he referred to it as a Schlüssel disk. Well, a Schlüssel disk is essentially a key drive or a key disk, which is essentially the same thing as a flash drive. And so Schlüssel disk became our word. We didn't make it up. It came from Germany. Where he got it from, I don't know. But this is how that word entered our dictionary. Cruise control. In Polish, we found the word tempomat for cruise control, which means the automatic control of speed. Since Yiddish also has the suffix omat to mean automatic, and temp means speed in Yiddish, we included tempomat, just the same word, as the Yiddish gloss for cruise control because it said the same thing in Yiddish as it said in Polish. Similarly with ATM machine, that is a bankomat or a Geldautomat. Binge watch. We have an expression in Yiddish, someone who reads voraciously. Schlingt Bücher or sie schlingt Bücher. So that was the start-off point, the jumping-off point for binge watch. Binge watch is schlingen Episoden von a Programm. A tell-all book, that was easy. A Lashon Hara book. And finally, wrap one's head around. I intensely disliked this expression when I first heard it in English. And it was reportedly first found in a printed text in English around 1978. How the heck do you wrap your head around anything? Your arms maybe, but your head? Still, this was a contemporary expression, and we wanted to find an equivalent. Coincidentally, within the same year that we were discussing the possibilities, I was reading a short story by Yosef Opatoshu, and suddenly there it was. Sie kann es nicht arimnemen mitten moyach. She can't surround it with her brain. That was an expression in Opatoshu. The great Yiddish writer Opatoshu had it 50 years before English did. And in the end, no new coinage was needed. And so in 2016, Indiana University Press graciously published the first edition of the Comprehensive English-Yiddish Dictionary. The copyright is owned by the Yiddish Liga, the League for Yiddish, which I'm the board chair of. And it had more than 83,000 entries and sub-entries. A second edition, and it sold out. After, I think, 4,000 copies were sold out, they published a revised and expanded edition. That is, we revised and expanded it. They published it. It had approximately 1,000 additional words and expressions, including, by popular demand, 100 words of modern Hasidic usage. We're not talking about the words that people frequently say, oh, the Hasidim say, "Gevocht in the street." We're not talking about those kinds of words. We're talking about other words, synonyms for words that we use daily in life, but somehow in Hungarian Yiddish, among many of the Hasidim, there are other synonyms. And so that we were able to do that. 2 years before the second edition came out, we published an online version of the English-Yiddish Dictionary, and we can thank Chaim Bochner, the one who edited the Comprehensive Yiddish-English Dictionary. He used his platform and created for us an online English-Yiddish dictionary. So you look up the word dictionary in your search box, and on the right-hand side, it'll show, of course, this is a screenshot, but it's showing 4 of a number of other words related to dictionary. And of course, the dictionary in Yiddish is a Wörterbuch. And how do you use the online dictionary? I'm trying to see how to increase the size, but I really don't know that I can do it. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Let's say you want to look up the word for make love. It takes you to the noun love. And then you have platonic love, maternal love, romantic, erotic love, divine love, and many, 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 many words with the word love. And then, of course, there are the verbs for love. This online dictionary is very, very useful for people who don't know the Aleph base very well, because you have this option here to add the transliteration. And every word that appears in Yiddish is rendered in transliteration as well. So let me go back to the original here. Okay. And so I'm sorry. So for those of us, oops, I already said that. I'm going to move on. One direct outcome of the work on this dictionary over the years was the initiation by the League for Yiddish of something called Werte von der Woche. It is a regular weekly posting on our Facebook page. It means words of the week. And we started this in 2013. Why? Because we still didn't have a dictionary published, and people kept calling me and writing Herschel and other people. How do you say this? How do you say that? So we started this column just to let people know how to say these words, because we didn't know when or if the dictionary was going to be published. So we started Werte von der Woche in 2013. This was a list in honor of National Sandwich Month. And now you can find us and like us and share us on Twitter and Instagram as well. And that's what we have for you now, for your reading pleasure. We have a printed version, an online version, a social media version of some of those words. And finally, the making of this dictionary, we believe, was really worth the effort. After 2 editions from Indiana University Press, we are looking forward to a potential 3rd one within the next few years. With the online dictionary, we continually add words, update, and yes, expand the dictionary from month to month. And we remain confident that we can contribute to maintaining Yiddish as a living, a lebendig, spoken, vibrant language bis 120. Schönen Dank.
Boy, that was wonderful. Nicole, can I ask you for the first question?
Yes.
Where are the cards that your father put together?
When we sold our parents' home, we donated all of his work material to YIVO.
So they're in Yiddish.
And they were organized they were partly organized when they were in our house, alphabetized in any sense. But the YIVO had them partly organized by box. I'm not an archivist. I don't really know how that works. The cards themselves are currently in a storehouse in New Jersey, where YIVO keeps all of its printed paper archives. And the cards that we used for the dictionary I had digitized them in the 1990s. So everything that was on those cards, I have in a document on my computer and in the cloud, but the actual cards themselves are in a box or in many boxes in a storehouse in New Jersey.
Shulam Lunder has a question. I believe you can speak, sir.
Dank. I'll just say a few words in Yiddish and then I'll translate. Danks Asach Gittel Fazichazoi Bamien, the Arbeit ich verstehe is gewähnt ungestrengen and as gehört wird for so long. Thank you so much for this work. I know you really struggled. And I remember your story of coming home after a day of work and then you'd sit down and work till 1 in the morning, do this for 10 years. The Kolakova.
Where did you hear that story?
And dear, I've heard the story of the dictionary many times, but I always enjoy it. Ich habe eine Frage. Ich führe mit der Lehrenkreis. I run a weekly Lehrenkreis. And eine von der Sachen, was mit hier, one of the things we do is man spielt sich mit der Werte. So here's a word, treff wie man soll sagen, comic timing. Eins haben wir geschafft, komischer Takt. Comic rhythm was clarity.
Best I've tracked them.
Okay, all right. Okay. Anyway, this is a dance.
For Shabbos, I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Comic timing. Yeah.
No, this is outstanding.
Oh, this is it. Okay, I thought there was another question coming. A schönen Dank van vragen. En ik wil me van de tracht zien wegen dem.
Okay.
Are there?
Someone-
Benna, you have a question?
Yes.
Benna, you're.
Yeah.
Hi,
Benna.
schön, dass Sie sind. Schönen Dank. Ich wollte fragen, ob Emerson ob du bist gewesen in Kontakt mit Emerson von Google wegen sehr Jiddisch Wörterbuch, weil Google Translate ist schrecklich.
Wir wissen. Ja, was bemerken, als ich habe nicht ausgerechnet Google Translate zwischen dem Akkoidem, was mir genutzt. I did not mention Google Translate as one of the sources that we used because it is incredibly unreliable and horrendous. So several members of the board of the League for Yiddish had a conversation earlier this year, or actually it was last year, with a linguist in Israel who actually speaks no Yiddish or very little Yiddish. And he has this plan of improving Google Translate. How do you do that? I had no idea how you do it. And as I understand it, you have to enter millions and millions of words in context, in literature, and you have to enter it into some kind of a program. Maybe somebody else here at the Chicago YIVO understands that process. And we talked about the possibility, and he is willing to do it. I forgot his name, unfortunately, but he's willing to do it on his own time. And I don't know that he went ahead with it or not. We didn't hear from him again, but thank you for reminding me. I'm going to get in touch with him. Dank.
Dank dir.
And this is a project was volt gedoyet mehr wie pucha duschen. Is let me say no per arbeitstag auf dem.
There's a question in the chat box, Gito. How does one access the online Yiddish dictionary?
Oh, you know what? What happened to that last page? Oh my gosh. Here we go. Let me move this out of my view. Sorry, I'm moving the meeting chat. Here we go. So the print version of the dictionary is available at the leagueforyiddish.org. And if you have any questions, you could just write to us at info@leagueforyiddish.org. This here is the long link to get directly to the print dictionary. And the online dictionary is not on the League for Yiddish website. It is a separate platform, as I mentioned earlier. And it is EnglishYiddishDictionary.com. And if you go there, one word, EnglishYiddishDictionary.com. And the policy is that anyone who goes and creates an account can get 5 free words a month. once you start searching for the 6th word of the month, there will be a communication, not from me, excuse me, but from the shamus, the person who manages the website, that here are the options. And it's not expensive. You can sign up for a month, for a quarter, for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years. And you can find out all the information at English-Yiddish-Dictionary.com.
Are there, Jeffrey, are you?
Just a Bemerkung dazu. Weinreich's dictionary, and you alluded to it when you talk about Pischen, is Bowdlerized. He really will not find anything in there that is even remotely vulgar. I want to applaud you for putting everything vulgar in that you possibly could find. And my favorite is unklingen mitten Gesetz. So would you translate that for us?
Unklingen mitten Gesetz, otherwise known as
Dialing.
Klingen emitzen alpituchis, means a butt dial, a pocket dial or a butt dial. Thank you, Shia, for enlightening the crowd.
I don't see if anybody else is raising a hand. This was truly fascinating.
It was my pleasure. Afagenigen.
Yes. Sholem, are you asking another question? No.
Ich habe noch eine kurze Bemerkung, if I may, just a short comment. Gittel, dein Prozess ist sehr interessant zu mir, wie soll die geklärt, wie soll anzuleiten die Werte in Wörterbuch. Your process is very interesting to me, how you decided to include words in the dictionary. Weil ich die eine ähnliche Sache, ich habe auch Deutsch, Englisch, Polish, English, und Hebräisch, ich habe Zahlenswörter, und ich habe die dieselbe Prozess. Das ist interessant. Es gibt auch, das ist so ein natürlicher Prozess, wie es ein bekannt zu klären wegen Wörter in Yiddish. Das ist gewesen dieselbe Sache in Hebräisch. It's probably the same thing when they are creating the new modern Hebrew.
Right.
That's my comment.
Ich habe das nicht gemeint. I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the things that we did, that I did at the beginning of the project, when we decided we wanted to do really a whole dictionary, excuse me, Anschuldig, is I took the Oxford English Hebrew Dictionary. It's a small dictionary. It's a pocket paperback dictionary, because modern Hebrew was created in large measure by Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews, and they imported many calques from Yiddish. Calques meaning expressions that are just essentially translated word for word, or the same word. And I found I am not fluent in Hebrew, but I know enough Hebrew to be able to go through a dictionary and understand what I'm reading. And I actually was having so much fun seeing how many expressions in Hebrew come from Yiddish. There's a verb, and I'm probably not saying it right. Lenishnash or lenashnash.
Lanish.
What is it?
Probably lanishnash.
Lenishnash, which means to nash. And by the way, the English word nash comes from Yiddish, from nashen. So I had some fun there, and we were able to find a number of expressions in the Hebrew dictionary.
Hast du gehört, als die Three Stooges eine verantwortlich für Einführung 300 jüdische Wörter in den englischen Laschen? Also ich habe gelernt, irgendwie. The Three Stooges were supposedly responsible for introduction of a couple hundred Yiddish words into English.
Is this gewesen Mo, Larry, or Curly?
Alles.
Oh, the Shep.
Shep. Alles.
Das ruft man a factoid.
Yeah.
People,
Groucho
I
Marx,
wanna
too. The Marx Brothers too.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I want to thank you very much, Githel. And you have my email address. Please send me your home address. We will send you an honorarium in the name of the Chicago YIVO Society. We're very pleased to have you. This was fascinating to me, and I believe it was fascinating to all of us who joined.
Soll Jiddisch leben und streben, lang noch 120.
And then,
Okay, I'm going to end the meeting for all.
Gut. Seid gesinnt, seid mir alle
Seid-
gesinnt.
Stark gesinnt.
Schönen Dank.
Soll ich wohl bekommen.
Schönen Dank.